We're joined today by HopgoodGanim partner Michelle Eastwell. Michelle, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
The federal and Queensland governments have recently proposed some new funding options for emerging and innovative businesses. Can you tell us about these?
Sure. The federal government has committed $7.8 million in its recent budget to remove obstacles for equity-based crowdfunding in Australia. Crowdfunding is a worldwide phenomenon, so this is fantastic news for startups and small businesses. At a more local level, the Queensland Government has also in its recent budget earmarked $40 million for the Development Fund for Emerging and Startup Businesses in Queensland and to provide funding on a co-investment basis with private sector investors.
Crowdfunding is certainly a hot topic at the moment, both in Australia and internationally. What is crowdfunding about and how can it work in Australia?
Equity crowdfunding enables entrepreneurs to raise funds online from a large number of retail investors. Australia currently lags behind a number of other jurisdictions such as the US, Canada and New Zealand, which permit equity-based crowdfunding. Given the significant interest in rewards-based crowdfunding in Australia, it's likely that equity-based crowdfunding will also be of great interest to the investment community. There are a number of platforms that exist in Australia for equity-based funding, however their reach is quite limited due to them only being open to professional or sophisticated investors. The budget package is all about opening up the regulatory regime to permit equity-based crowdfunding for the greater masses, which is great news for startup and innovative businesses in Australia.
And when are the changes to facilitate crowdsourced equity funding in Australia expected to come through?
The legislation is expected to be implemented in the spring session, and given the significant amount of funding that is earmarked for this first period in the budget, it's hoped that by the end of the 2015-2016 financial year that we will actually have a regime that's usable for equity source crowdfunding.
Moving to the Queensland Government's $40 million Business Development Funds, how will businesses access this?
The Business Development Fund will be administered by QIC, and investors will come to the QIC with a private sector co-investor and present their story to a panel of investors selected by the QIC to represent the fund. There'll be a number of criteria that have to be met, including a dollar-for-dollar matching of the funding requested by a private sector investor and a number of other criteria such as the majority of the assets or businesses being based in Queensland.
When will the Queensland Government's Business Development Fund be accessible to businesses?
The Queensland Government is currently working on the design and implementation of the fund, and it's hoped that applications will be open by the end of 2015.
Sounds like a great opportunity. Michelle, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.